You have stepped into a season of awareness and awakening with this Wonders card. This is the energy of missing pieces, missing links, aspects that had been like unanswered questions or things that you've been kind of like circling around. You've been trying to use your logic to figure out like why certain things happened, what the purpose of particular experiences in this lifetime were for, or particular people in your life that you might have had to learn the hard way or harsh way were simply just lessons. They weren't meant to continue with you on in a long-term sense in your journey, or their role in your journey in life was not something that was necessary benevolent, but was almost very antagonistic in nature, something that might have set you off course from a particular path that you were walking in the past, certain obstacles that had arisen, certain challenges that you were then forced to kind of figure your way through. You found yourself knotted up in the midst of certain circumstances, and you've been trying to undo those knots one by one in order to liberate yourself. It's bringing forth the energy of like Eight of Swords, kind of like walking beyond sort of harsher conditions, harsher relationships, a harsh relationship with yourself, even a lot of guilt and shame or a sense of frustration, kind of like, how could I not have seen that for what it was? How could I have allowed that to happen to myself? How could I have put myself in that situation? Or, how did I get tricked or fooled by that individual or that circumstance for as long as I did? Why did I give that person and that circumstance the benefit of the doubt when they proved to be almost a person standing there without a cup that you've been pouring from your own cup into? That can be people, places, or things. Something that you'd had like the best intentions, you'd had good intentions, you thought that you were leading from the heart space, and instead it kind of ended up in a situation for you, or maybe it had caused you to sort of like go within, kind of like search within. This can definitely relate to like karmic people, karmic soul contracts that it feels like have course corrected you or rerouted what you imagined your life might be like at this point versus the reality that you are living in this current moment. There's a sense of like almost this pervasive question of why. You're about to get a substantial answer to that. It's something which rises from inside of yourself. It's something where it's like you've had all these details, all these experiences, all of these things that you've been through or that you've witnessed or that have happened to you that have just been rolling around in the subconscious or in your higher mind. You've been, living your life. You've been trying to do your best. You've been trying to put one foot in front of the other, clear up kind of the brokenness or the wreckage of things that you've been through, or, trying to make the most out of opportunities, trying to focus on the positives, look on the bright side, kind of, move forward in a better direction. And it feels that this is an occasion, this is a season where you're going to be released from some kind of like anchor of uncertainty within. You're going to get these pops of clarity that allow you to witness in real time. It feels like almost the fulfillment, the completion, and the non-renewal of certain soul contracts. So with people like karmic partners, past life people that have kind of come back around in this present incarnation, versions of yourself that you have kind of embodied. This can have to do with like vows from previous lifetimes, that you have kind of repeated. You've just sort of stepped into that role, or you've been typecast in that way by others in this particular lifetime. Yeah, you've had free will. Yeah, you've kind of like chosen your path, or, you're living in the realm of kind of the repercussions or consequences of certain choices. But this is the energy of something where it's almost like a predetermined course. There were certain things you just sort of naturally gravitated towards that needed to be experienced in terms of like lessons, or, just sort of well-trodden paths that your soul has walked down, has journeyed down through many incarnations, involving certain people that it's kind of like you've reached the end of the road with them. You've learned all you needed to from one another. And so this is the experience in real time of being liberated from that. It comes almost with the paradox of a lot of things that might have fallen apart, that, or, people that have, betrayed or abandoned you, people you've had to walk away from, you've made poor your choices, and so perhaps they were in the right for kind of casting you out. Whatever that sort of looks like, it feels like you're about to come to something where it's like you don't have to search very hard. This isn't like forgive and forget, or work to kind of release yourself from sort of the bondage of that experience, or kind of the residual emotions, the echo of that, something that's been carried forth through many lifetimes. It's like you're standing in the midst of this energetic experience in the here and now, where you're ready to witness kind of that completion, that sense of like, okay, even if I don't have like a specific sort of flash of inspiration, like I see why that had to happen now. I see the benefit out of that kind of, nasty little circumstance that I was in, or that nasty little person that I had to deal with. It's something where it's almost kind of like you're able to breathe very deep. You're able to no longer put your attention on that. You're able to sort of look beyond and really not have to will yourself to focus on the positives, or to understand that like new opportunities, new options, new horizons are now open for you. But it's like you're stepping and standing in the midst of that and able to look back at this huge distance, in like a quantum sense, that you've traveled, energetically speaking, from the person that you were when you first began this incarnation. And you had to have certain experiences, you had to kind of walk through those, you had to live that out, you had to have that real life experience, you had to experience that hurt, you had to hurt others in order to come into this place within yourself of like, that narrative is complete, the dance is done, the song is over. There's no need to re-sign that soul contract anymore, because we've reached the end of the line with that, which frees those individuals. More importantly, it frees you in this lifetime in terms of the things that are now possible for you, what you can reach towards with that clarity, with that sense of completion inside of yourself that doesn't need to be understood fully in a logical sense. It's going to translate in terms of like levity within your energy, that allows you to look optimistically with the wisdom that you have garnered, or that you've crafted and created out of kind of your folly, your mistakes, your lessons of the past. But something that you're able to kind of move through into the future with more trust than should be the case if you were to think like literally or logically about experiences that you've had where like, yeah, trust was broken, I broke other people's trust, my trust in myself was broken, my trust in the outside world was damaged in some sort of way, that for all intents and purposes you should be a person that is moving forward in a heavily armored energy, with high walls, like living within a fortress inside of yourself. And maybe you've done that for quite some time. It's been necessary to kind of get through those sort of, final chapters, those final bits, those final years, those final experiences of like the end of the line of these soul contracts, the end of that role that you just kind of unconsciously signed on for, that drama that is played out in its own unique way in this lifetime. That's almost like not the first time you've performed this piece. It's different now because the times are different. The cast of characters is slightly altered, but you are that common denominator. And this is a sense of kind of like the credits rolling for that. That movie is over. That book is done. That contract is over. And you are now able to be almost, I'm hearing a free agent, to be able to kind of make some very conscious and free will decisions. What now? Who do I want to become? Who will I allow myself to be kind of magnetized towards in terms of new relationships, new partnerships, new soul contracts that I can explore, that I can experiment with, that have been waiting for me to kind of clear out the clutter of the past or of past lives in order to be readied within myself and these other circumstances and people, doing the same sort of thing, readied within themselves to be able to embark on a profound new experience that it feels like ripples forth across multiple lifetimes. So this is a season of like closing out very, for some, like ancient soul contracts, or very kind of like long-term soul contracts with individuals, with geographic locations, with mindsets, with certain archetypes that you've embodied within your life, or roles that you have kind of just been thrust into, or that you've chosen for yourself. And now comes the time where, with fresh eyes, it's almost like you get a new beginning at life within this same lifetime. You're setting the stage, or you're signing on the dotted line with others as far as like what the nature of kind of your narrative arc as a soul will look like in other incarnations to come. Not that there won't be kind of downs to go with the ups, but it feels like this is something where a lot of sort of the harsh experiences, the lessons that you've learned, the people that you've been going sort of, back and forth with across multiple lifetimes, it's like the nature of that has been severed, it's been completed. And if you're watching this reading, you're the one that has done that. It's not that other person who would have just been unconsciously kind of carrying out their repeating role, the repeating pattern, the broken record of their proximity to you, not necessarily as the individual, but on that soul to soul recognition level. There's other people that may have just kind of like tried to tell you the type of role you should be playing in this life, tried to tell you who you were until you took the time or were forced to discover who you really are within yourself, or who you choose to be moving forward. You're moving forward with more of like a conscious awareness, of yourself, of energy, of the life that you are living, of the ability to kind of manifest abundance for yourself in multiple ways, in different shapes and forms. And so this signals something where this is a season of almost, or like an experience of personal empowerment, where you have shut down those old cycles. You have chosen not to kind of re-participate again. You've done something different in order to cancel out those soul contracts that it feels like have kept you in this sort of loop to a certain extent for many lifetimes. And so this is the energy here, of things really improving for you in a lot of ways, a lot more clarity, a lot more certainty about what's like right for you, and what just doesn't fit or doesn't align. Like, yeah, you'll be making logical decisions moving forward, but it feels like this is also something that you have like an energetic or a spiritual clarity, those nudges from your higher self, from spirit, from your spirit guides, from your angels, kind of letting you know what to gravitate in the direction towards and what to keep at arm's length. All of that comes through this process of having to, and very successfully going through kind of the motions, living it out, and in the things that you've chosen to do, to turn away from, or to move towards, that have essentially kind of reshuffled the deck for you as far as the energies that you were playing, the card of hands that you were dealt energetically speaking, in comparison to others that are at sort of the game table of your life to a certain extent. It's almost like you've stood up from that game, you've cashed out, you've walked away. You are now moving to a different place within your reality, a different set of rules. You yourself being the game master in this capacity, because some part of you maybe that is very consciously aware of it. Maybe you've closed out from karmic cycles, you've cut cords with karmic people, you've chosen something different for yourself. So that's kind of willing yourself to get up and move forward. Other circumstances, it feels like it was almost sort of the end of the line, and some instinct within you maybe even self-sabotaged certain circumstances as a way to kind of escape what would have just been the inevitability of living with almost like blinders on, living in the sense of almost like cloaked from your own higher potential, because had it not been for sort of like situations of turbulence, or things that almost feel to be kind of like extracting yourself from previous timelines or experiences or relationships in a way that might have been very difficult, that you would equate with lessons, or kind of like a hard or sharp turn in your journey in some sort of way. This has been exactly what has been necessary to kind of remove you from situations, that again would have just been sort of perpetuated, not to your advantage for the duration of this lifetime as had been in previous lifetimes, and it would have carried on into lifetimes to come, but you've really you've reached the end of the road with that in some way. So it feels like you're stepping as well into a season where like true self-forgiveness is possible, regardless of if you choose to kind of extend that to others quietly, outwardly. It feels like most importantly, your relationship with yourself, you're able to let yourself off the hook. You're able to have these like aha moments, or these epiphanies of like, okay, that didn't go as I would have liked it to. That was a difficult or painful experience. That was a teaching tool. That was kind of like a season of lessons, but I'm still here. I'm stronger than ever. I know myself. I have a deeper capacity for self-compassion and self-love because of the ways that I've had to like sew up my own wounds. I've had to be very tough on myself to do better. I've had to figure out a way to kind of rebuild from the ashes of tower moments that are self-created or that others created in my life. And so it feels like moving forward, kind of like the nature of love and clarity that you have to give or that you have to infuse in sort of like new environments, new projects, new relationships, new experiences. It comes at like a higher value. You've actually increased your winnings, even as a paradox, when it has felt like you have lost, because you have proven kind of the durability of yourself as a soul, as a spirit, your willingness to kind of push against the ordinary, to walk away from this stack of soul contracts, or to not try to like go back in and sort of negotiate terms and conditions with people and environments and situations, maybe even like negotiating a relationship with yourself that would have involved like a perpetual lack mentality based on experiences from the past. Like all of that choice to kind of just close the book and move on to something else, to force yourself or encourage yourself or allow yourself to direct your sights towards the future. This is something that it feels like has kickstarted. It has activated that cycle of like, you are up on this next level. You live out the rest of this lifetime, but then from this point going forward, future incarnations, there's a sense of almost like you come in with more of that clarity. The lessons that you'll have to learn, it's not the same things that you've been through or that you've had to like put others through in order to humble yourself or to be humbled. It's like you've cleared away all that clutter. You've released yourself from those vows, from those burdens, from those alliances, from those entanglements that served a purpose and that some part of you has declared like liberation from, independence from, sovereignty beyond. Yeah, we also have voyage. So this ties into the idea of something that may come through for you in terms of like connecting certain dots. Not like you're sitting there and ruminating or thinking and like, let me connect the dots with these certain events and find the blessing, find the silver lining, but something where you're just kind of like going about the motions of your day, going about your life, kind of living in the here and now. And these are these sparks of awareness. These are these clues. These are these aha moments. So things that you might have been like, man, I really made some like bad decisions and I missed out on something. Or, you were second guessing a choice not to do something, not to kind of just fall in line and be like everyone else, not to take that advice from someone, not to leap towards an opportunity. And you may have had certain regrets or certain like, what if that was the wrong decision? Where you're kind of like having second thoughts in some sort of way, but it may be too late to turn back the hands of time. Those doors of opportunity are like closed for you now for the rest of this lifetime. And so you're just sort of forced to kind of live in the midst of that. This is the energy of something that's really going to help you to see like your higher self was almost making that choice based on some sort of perception into like this future version of you that you're embodying in the here and now, and who you are becoming more and more each day as like linear time, as calendar time passes and you continue to live in the midst of that. There's almost a sense of like you're going to be so grateful that you had almost what could be described as foresight, but definitely almost like a sense of prophecy, something that at the time didn't really make sense, but you're able to kind of look around or feel that essence of like, yeah, I'm really glad that I missed out on that. Yeah, I'm really glad that didn't happen for me. Yeah, I'm really glad that I messed that up. I'm really glad that I sabotaged that. I'm really glad that I was course corrected in another direction, or that that person abandoned me, left me out to dry, left me in the middle of the ocean stranded, walked away, or that I ran for the hills and then there was no coming back from that. Something that is going to come into your awareness that doesn't even involve kind of like information as far as what other people are up to or, what's going on in the lives of others, but it's something where you're able to get kind of like a glimpse or a preview, almost like into the multiverse of what life would have been like if things had turned out differently. And it's a sense of like you would have been stuck. You would have been miserable. You would have been anchored into something that would have been like you're re-signing on for those soul contracts with those karmic people, that karmic role, that kind of like karmic situation. And it wouldn't have just been like I'm stuck there for a lifetime, but something that would have carried out for millennia. And now you are in this experience of like, not just the world is your oyster, but like the future is your oyster. This is something, this is a time where it feels like a lot of you are going to start to allow yourself to dream again, and not just kind of like things and goals that you want to accomplish in the here and now, but letting your kind of like wider mind and your imagination really open up. This can take place in the meditative space, through shamanic journeying, through different, even like modalities that may be undefinable, but it's something that it's just like a mechanism that works for you. Maybe something that you'll start to kind of, create for other people in terms of like a bigger portion of manifestation, like you're dreaming beyond this lifetime. You're dreaming to the nature of sort of like what wish fulfillment or what that sense of levity will be, not as this avatar of you, this character of you in the here and now and what you're able to accomplish, but maybe even seeds that you plant in the here and now and the harvest that that will blossom into for humanity, for yourself as a soul, for your lineage, somewhere where you would know, like, I'd want to reincarnate there, or you'd have certain probabilities that you'd end up back with that same bunch, with that same group, or a desire to do so, whatever that looks like, kind of almost sort of like aiming for the center of the universe and knowing that wherever you land, wherever that stopping point is for you in the here and now, it's like you're already amongst the stars, but you've charted this course further beyond what you might think is kind of like logical or reasonable or achievable in some sort of way, that it feels like it's going to help to kind of pull you up beyond some kind of urge to continue to look towards the past and, second guess those choices, to look towards the past with the energy of regret, to keep yourself anchored in some way, even to kind of like, I'm trying to outrun the nature of repercussions, which may have informed a very necessary portion of your journey up to this point. But it's like these moments of recognition that it's like, you did that, you paid your dues, you did your time, you fulfilled your role, or you walked out. You chose not to do that anymore, not to be stuck within that cycle, not to kind of give of yourself energetically or actually to those narratives, to those themes, to those ideas, to those people, to those versions of reality that didn't quite feel right to you, didn't feel aligned with who you are as a soul. This is a sense of kind of like, it's a breathtaking energy, almost like these glimpses that you're going to get in a way that you might not be able to discern fully what the picture will be, how that will play out, how it will manifest in physicality. But it's being able to kind of tap into just this huge feeling of yes, this huge feeling of accomplishment. It feels like your higher self, past versions of yourself, concurrent versions of yourself, they are very proud of you. Like you've done something that is like a huge leap forward for you as a soul, something that is kind of like a rare occurrence, even in terms of like the general incarnation journey for all people, is kind of like this point where it's not just, hey, I wrapped up one thing, but I wrapped up many things. And so the future truly is bright for me. That this is something that it feels like your light is going to shine a lot brighter. The doors of opportunity that open for you in the here and now, and the echo of that forward through time, this is monumentous. This is something that it's like you can't even fathom, you can't even appreciate. It will take multiple lifetimes in order to drink of that fully. And this is something that it feels like it's been a very long journey. You had to go without a lot of things. You had to be overlooked for a lot of things. You had to be counted out. You had to count yourself out. You had to make what seemed on the surface to be like mistakes or errors or things that you regret. Things that you're kind of like, I wish I could have done that differently. But this is a season where it's like that wishing is silenced. There's no more need to feed energy into that current of experience, because this is the sense of kind of like breathing in this fresh air of this new timeline that you have inserted yourself upon. You've injected yourself beyond the old narrative. And so it feels like it brings with it a lot of blessings, a lot of new opportunity, but also the ability to really, again, kind of navigate a course for yourself, chart a course forward very intentionally, very deliberately, in terms of like, yeah, I have my life that I'm going to live in the here and now, but factoring in on some level your intention of how that will ripple forth on into other incarnations. We also have healing chaos. Yeah, so this is something where you have risen above the storm. You were caught within the eye of the storm, maybe self-created storms in your own life or in the lives of others. You churned around within that for as long as was necessary, and you have now pivoted yourself into a new environment. You sat still, you were patient, you waited for the pain or the wreckage to pass. You fixed the broken pieces as best as you could. You offered apologies. You tried to make amends to others where you could. You've offered that energy of grace and compassion to yourself in what ways felt right, and also most especially in ways that felt very uncomfortable. That might have been the hardest task for a lot of you, is not just sort of seeking forgiveness from other people or trying to make amends, but in some sort of way, kind of like allowing yourself to sort of sit in the midst of that pain, in the midst of that regret, in the midst of things that might not have even been the product of your own doing, but that had like occurred to you, sitting in the midst of that, writing it out, and then granting yourself permission to access a different frequency of experience. Understanding that healing and wellness and feeling good, that you are deserving of that. You have earned that. You have given yourself a clean break from any sort of need to kind of offset joy with a quotient of suffering, so that there is some kind of balance, so there was some kind of contrast, so that your palate could be acclimated to the experience of fulfillment because you've tasted of its absence. This is the energy of like a profound transformation of something that is happening now for you as a soul. Your life is getting ready to transform in a very beautiful way. If you've had a lot of obstacles, a lot of frustration, you've had to sit with yourself. You've not really had people that could understand what you're going through. You didn't have a lot of helpful people. There weren't a lot of people giving pity or compassion towards you for the situation that you found yourself in, for things that you did, choices that you made. That's all about to change. That's something where you've healed your own wounds. You've become your own healer. And so now you are raised within yourself. You have lifted yourself up, even just through your willingness to sit still, or as still as possible, within the midst of kind of what needed to be sort of the dredges of a lived experience. It was a chapter for you. It was an experience. For some of you, this is like decades long that has happened. And you've reached the end of the road of something, and it's not just for this lifetime. It's like many, many lifetimes, all spilled over into this moment in the here and now. For some of you, the early part of your life was very tough, very unforgiving. You were hardened by life. You were checked by lessons. Negative experience after negative experience, unfair circumstances, an unfair hand of cards that was dealt to you, or that you'd chosen. You'd pick that up off the table yourself and said, yeah, I'll sit here. This will be my life. I choose this role. And there's a sense of you've moved beyond all of that. You've stood up from that table. You have moved elsewhere. And so, yeah, you'll have your good days. Yeah, you'll have your bad days. And that's just life. That's just human reality. It's not all like linear and smiles all the time. That's just not the nature of how things work in the material plane. But this is a sense that you have kind of like paid your dues. You've paid your debt to society, so to speak. You have come to a place of having the wherewithal inside of yourself to have been honed and fashioned, or to have chosen to do that through the midst of what might have been some very like dingy or gritty circumstances, very unfair circumstances. And instead of letting that kind of like knock you down and bury you, you've come up like the phoenix from the ashes. These wings are impermeable to the vibrations that in the past would have brought you down. The storms in the past that would have knocked the wind out of your sails, would have knocked you off your square, would have crumbled you. It's almost like those aren't even blowing in your direction anymore, because you're operating at this different frequency, because you've liberated yourself from being contained within those stories or within those karmic connections, within that karmic version of yourself. You've freed yourself of a particular identity that you have embodied in this lifetime. And every day you're going to feel more certain, more strong within this role of, feels like who you truly are. You started off this life living as an illusion and within many illusions, almost like a hall of mirrors, like funhouse mirrors where there were distortions. It wasn't accurate. The projections placed upon you by others were not accurate. What you saw within others and other circumstances, it was not accurate. There's been a shattering of those illusions. It's been very painful to see the reality of what has existed beyond the glass. Sometimes the truth of what's there, or the fact that there was nothing there at all. But you have now exited that sphere of your reality. You are now someone that is reflecting something very different out into others, out into the universe, out into your environment. You are radiating true healing energy because you have become your own healer. And so it feels like this is something where there are more benevolent experiences. There are gentler experiences. There are experiences which are going to kind of honor the need to develop a level of softness within you that life up to this point in time has just not given you the privilege to experience. That's been on the bottom of your list. That's been in the back burner. That's been what you've protected. It's that kind of fledgling energy of softness inside of you. So this is a time now where you've proven your strength, you've proven your endurance, and now life wants to reward you with things that feel more aligned. You choosing to move in directions that are in accordance with your highest good, because you can see for miles beyond what you are experiencing in the 3D sense. You've cultivated that inner knowing and that intuition by having a problem solve your way, even through kind of a resistance to sit within the nature of self-created wreckage. The frustration of being in unchangeable circumstances and just having to ride out that storm. Whatever that has looked like for you up to this point in time, the harsh truths and the harsh realities of the people, places, and things that you were dealing with up to a certain point, until they ejected you or you ejected yourself from those narratives. All of that is something which has created a level of beauty in the form of your personal armor. But now this is the time and the experience of not things that make you kind of like regret taking a chance, not things that sort of bring you into circumstances or environments where you're going to be tested, but things where you're going to be rewarded, where it's like good choice after good choice, choosing the right door after the right door, aligning with a lot of serendipity that can be your proof that as much as others may think that you've wandered off course, or you may have questioned that for yourself, that you have actually aligned with some higher current of healing. And it's only looking brighter from here. Things are only going to look up from here for you. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content that I put out here. Don't forget to hit the bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.